And we got a Garry watch. He's definitely in the building, folks, so don't worry about that. But he is somewhere, as we see the playing hall of the U.S. Women's Open, and yeah, okay, now we've come
Perhaps
back.
he just got lost in the beauty of the renovations. It's easy to kind of get distracted by how beautiful the space looks, but he has made his way to the board.
In terms of castling, by the way, because that's going to be a key issue here. In terms of castling, I always like my king next to the knights. So if you imagine knight f3, knight g4 for g3 for white, you want your king on g1. And we do have e4 on the board, as we expected. And we did see Fabi and Garry looking at a very strange-looking pawn sacrifice. Remember, we were just seeing them looking at a position like this, and you were saying, Maurice, yeah, you get the knight back to c4 and or g4, and I think Gary's idea was to lure this pawn into a potential of g4.
Am I the only one who's a little bit...
Why are we thinking?
Wondering why is it that the e4 is played, looked like a pretty natural move, and Vishy has already gone into over 30-second thing. And he was sitting at the board before Garry sat there. What's going on?
And if I'm not wrong, when we got a quick look at his board in working through the position, e4 was on there at one point. So it's not like this is a first move that wasn't discussed to some degree.
I think the answer there was he saw that there were three major approaches to e4. The first was e5 and just keeping the balance, and we saw some kind of a Scotch game. The second is this choice, kind of going for French. Like we could have a situation of d4, d5, e5. And, you know, in the French, you have this usual light square bishop problem. Well, I don't see that so much as a problem anymore. You get to play playing bishop h5. So the second issue was the French. And actually, another third issue, once again, you would like to play d5 and not recapture with a rook, but recapture with a knight. Hence, a situation like this would play perfectly into black strategy. And Vishy spent 30 seconds. Which approach would I like? He eventually chose the French defense. Did you like his choice, Maurice?
May I make this point?
Sure.
Please. E6 has been played in 4 of the 5 games, 3 yesterday, and 1 today after e4. French players, like
rejoice.
Rejoicing.
It's a golden period for French defense players.
Well, for all the time that Vishy ate up, we're going to eat into Gary's clock in very much the same way.
Right.
Perhaps a little bit of a surprise for him. Some more tepid move here, less committal, reaching for that e6.
Well, you notice that Garry hasn't responded instantly with the d4, d5, e5 traditional French defense setups, because I think Garry is warming up to the fact that, you know, the pawn is supposed to restrict black's play. But after f6 followed by bishop g6, you might regret having given up the square f5. By the way, I'm going to put a move or two on the board, if you don't mind, for just a moment. And, you know, we've been talking about this queen on h8. In a French defense, where you're trying to secure the f5 square, queen suddenly is very nicely ready to come out. h4, queen h5, and I can warm up to the position for black.
I like it. You've preempted my question about how the queen all of a sudden didn't feel
out.
so good being locked out of that dark square diagonal, but like you say, sets up a nice little battery there for the bishop on a longer light square diagonal, perhaps.
Please.
And watching Garry head in hands move 2, this is what preparation is all about or even not all about when we're talking about Chess 960, because you're not going to see a world-class player sitting there, e4, e6, move 2, head in hands, trying to work out variations. He is looking at this, and clearly he and Fabi did not look at e6. So importantly, Vishy came up with a move that has now surprised Garry, at least in this first game, that he would have to look at for game 3, but he doesn't have the benefit of preparation now. He's got to deal with it in game 1.
This speaks to the multifaceted nature of a format like this, of a variant like this, right? Where you're playing not just the game of chess, you're playing the opponent, you're playing the clock, right? And so very much it can be just as maybe if it's not the most optimal move, maybe the engine says, okay, this isn't the best move. But in this circumstance, it might be the best move because of what it forces from your opponent. That now 3+ minutes of thinking here just on move 2?
Yeah, that's 960. You got to get the zen of the position.
I know it's 25-10, but we're not going to get past move 20 here before the clock's run out.
Right. E7, E6. This is a shout out to Hikaru Nakamura. Against the French defense, one of the lines that Hikaru adopted was the early F4, D5. And in a French defense, where black is nicely, let's say, gotten a wedge in the center, white goes for his own wedge on the king side. Again, bishop will come out to E3, maybe even to H4. Knight comes out to F3. Queen has a square on G2. The funny thing about this bishop, it's lurking. It's lurking. It's not a good move, but let me just point out, the bishop can come out the other way and potentially get on a very good diagonal.
That said, Yaz, I am not feeling the fluidity of play.
No,
for,
me either.
For white. I got to say, that move E6, the more I look at it, the more it seems like a fantastic solution for black's problems. Now that white has placed a pawn on E4, that E6 with D5, it creates a nice structure. It opens up the bishop, the one problem child that you have in the position, the one we said we don't like that piece. That piece is just quickly coming out with ease. Either it's coming out on the A4 to E8 diagonal, that diagonal we see there. This bishop certainly is going to be able to come this way, or it's going to be able to come along the other diagonal, E8 to H5. This piece, it's like we learn in chess, what's your worst piece? Improve it.
Exactly.
He's after that right now with the move E6. In addition to controlling the center quite well, that's a tough move, and Garry is showing that it is. Look at his clock.
Yeah, Vishy, he's answering those fundamental questions. Garry right now, we had questions about his time management yesterday, and I don't feel like he's answering those questions for us right now, Yasser.
No, he's still struggling to come to grips with the position. But at a certain moment, Garry is creating his pattern. He has an idea. Once he plays a move like F2, F4, everything's going to flow very, very quickly. He's going to bring in his knights out, knight F3, knight E3, bishop G3, move his queen, castle, short. Let's try F4 for a second, Maurice. Throw out a suggestion for Vishy in return. D5?
D5 seems like the most natural move, so I'll play it.
Exactly. And now, as they say, I'll take the wedgie.
Absolutely.
I got the central wedge. Now you're going to... Okay, what did he do? He went D4, after all, after a long think. Whoa.
Well, we all could have played that after 3 seconds.
What does that tell you about what his mindset is? Is that just, okay, I'm settling for a move that I... don't even necessarily like?
I think he's showing that he's struggling.
Okay.
He's struggling to come up with, the zen of the position. And it is a struggle. And look at this. This is not Garry Kasparov playing his patented ferocious type of game. He just captured on D5.
Let me say, I'm going to give Garry a little bit more credit, not because his time management was so great, but I think that from Garry's perspective, he wanted to make sure that he didn't fall into anything, or also that he had a nice path going forward. And obviously, this position is not majorly advantageous for white, as you kind of quickly look at it. But it ain't bad.
No.
It's not like it's a bad, he may not get a big edge coming out the opening, but he doesn't have to. He just needs to get his pieces in the game.
Right.
His time was spent. He decided, I'm going to just get some easy play, easy development. This looks like equality to my eyes pretty quickly. So it's just a game. It's just a game. The complexity of the opening is probably past us because there's no big structure with the pawn still there. This is when we see exchanges happen, we consider this kind of liquidation just straight towards equality.
And to your point, I've seen a player like Vincent Keimer, yes, in different time controls, but in Chess 960 take over 30 minutes to make his first move on a board as black.
Okay, that's a lot.
White, right? It's a lot, but he would then go on to win the event. So, hey, there might be something to it. And even an example yesterday in Game 4, we've seen how quickly a chess 960 game can go wrong as well, right?
Yes.
How quickly you can end up down an entire piece, and maybe that's eaten at the back of your mind a little bit too, wanting to avoid a situation like that if your opponent's approach has surprised you in some way, shape, or form. Now, a bit of a think here for Vishy. Because this surprised me a bit. We were talking so much about pawn development here on the right-hand side of the board, and yet it's actually happening over here on the left-hand side of the board.
Well, he just played c2, c3, essentially to open up the bishop. Now, you know me. I'm a king hunter, obviously. I've got that.
King hunter and
yeah,
pawn grabber.
Yeah. I have got that reputation. I've got that reputation as a king hunter.
He's making stuff up right now.
Vishy surprised me. So I'm imagining in my mind's eye, how do I get to white's king? Obviously, I play bishop a4. Give me your rook. Give me your rook. You're not going to play bishop c2. You're not playing bishop c2. You're going to play b3. I'm going to go back with the bishop, and you're going to bring your knight out. I'm going to bring my knight out. You're going to bring your knight out. I'm bringing my knight out. And then you're going to bring your bishop out. And now, here's my king hunting skills. You see that? You see that, Maurice?
Stop it.
Look at that.
That was
gifted attacking player, right?
amazing that you conceived of that profoundly
That
deep
is
idea.
beautiful. I think I would just
happen.
slide my rook out of the way, though, if you come in to threaten the rook.
Oh, you think there are more than one response?
I think there might be more than one response.
No way.
Even my 1200 rated mind can find that.
That was the main line, guys. c7, c6. Just, again, a little bit modest move. But I told you at the very start, my problem, the biggest problem piece with the bishops. The bishop's on e1, the bishop's on e8. Gary's opening is to cure that right away. He's put his bishop on d2. He's looking at playing, in case the knight comes to f6, he's looking at the potential for the pin, bishop g5.
And also, look, in symmetrical positions, the position can tend toward equality.
Clear.
That's just normal.
Right.
But also, the fact is that white goes first.
Yep.
So you can copy me, it's like your annoying little sister. I have one of those. She happens to be a 6-time world champion boxer, so it's even worse that she's so annoying. But they say, copy me, don't copy me, don't copy me.
Right.
In chess, you keep copying the person, they move first.
You will lose. Black.
There's going to be some point in that copying where you're not going to be able to copy.
Right.
So even though it's symmetrical, even though it might not have so much poison, some structural scope where white builds up a great pawn formation to try to do damage and restrict black, you can't just copy for the next 20 moves because there's going to be a threat that maybe I threaten mate and you can't threaten mate as well.
Right.
So that's something we have to keep our eye out for. Reminds me of, a lot of those E4, E5 positions where it's just like a quick, the Wesley So draw. I hate putting it on Wesley.
Right.
But, where everything just happens real quick on E5 and it trades down to a similar structure as this one.
Right.
Maybe it's more like a Petrov is what I'm thinking of. One of those that just turned highly symmetrical. And here we go, the annoying kid brother. In this case, copy me, I copy you, you copy me.
Symmetry.
Well,
So Vishy isn't afraid of the initiative just yet, right? Saying, I'm happy to play into the symmetry because I don't see that moment where I'm on the back foot because you're the one playing white and have the initiative.
And again, Vishy has just played the move bishop d7, very, very natural move, no problems. But this, for me, is an exchange French defense. Full stop, end of story.
Yes.
And a lot of times in the exchange French defense, the squares e5 and e4 become the argument. Who controls those squares? For me, I would have found the move f7, f6 attractive. First, because I defend the e5 square, but more importantly, I'm trying to get rid of the worst piece on the board. I want to play the move bishop g6 and force you to trade that bishop on my terms. Let me just make a move for white, okay? And if I could get you to think about trading, you remember I had a problem with my queen?
Yeah. Now she's
Not
alive.
anymore. You just opened up my queen, so I'm ready to play g5, queen h7. So I'm thinking f7, f6 wasn't such a bad
The only thing I would argue with
Bishop
f7, f6, if I may, and we go back to that, is Garry has now played rook e1, which foregoes castling on the king side.
Exactly.
After that move.
It also guarantees that symmetry
after
will be
f7,
broken.
sorry, instead of rook e1, I'd like to back up.
Please.
In this position, maybe bishop f5 check.
Yeah, that will provoke me to block. Yep.
And since my bishop was going to move
anyway, you've come back to c2.
I come back to some square, whether it's d3 or c2, and then prepare the knights to come out.
And you've left me committed to play the move f7, f6. Maybe that wasn't on my agenda. But on the
now
other
I can play
hand,
knight e3 and continue.
Right.
Or even knight g3. Yeah, but something like this. Maybe that's where his thinking was. But now rook to e1 by Vishy, and is this by Garry? Sorry, is this a copy me moment again?
Rook e1. No, it's not a copy me. Rook e8, I get to take and draw your bishop back to the e8 square. That I don't think is what you want. I think it's time to develop the knights. Let's just go. Knight e6, knight f6, knight g6, knight f6. Let's go.
You're picking the litter, huh?
Yeah. Now, I really do think that when Garry played the move bishop d2, he was trying to discourage Black from jumping with the move knight f6 because of bishop g5. Garry got up?
Gary's up.
Very surprised. He has been, as we saw on day one, he's been jumping out of his chair and kind of stalking around the playing hall.
That's Garry. Let's be clear. That's Garry. Garry does not like to just sit there at the board. He wants to walk around like a tiger on the prowl.
Right.
This tiger from Madras, that's his nickname, though Madras, Chennai, either one, but he sits at the board.
Yeah.
And focuses the entire time. I'm not sure if he does this in classical chess. That's something I don't recall. But he does it in rapid, and guess what?
No.
He copied you.
I didn't expect that. I really didn't expect that by Vishy.
Not a one of us expected it. The question is, did Garry expect it?
That's kind of funny, actually. No, again, I would have been more than happy just to get the knights out. Knight f6, go ahead and pin me, bishop g5, knight g6, intending the move bishop f4, I think was perfectly good for Black. This, I would have thought, I would have just rejected this because I feel like I made a step backwards. I made a concession, bishop e8.
Yeah, at the very least, we've broken it. We've achieved breaking the symmetry, but to your point, now on the side of Black, I just feel like I'm moved behind.
Yeah, well, we started a half ply behind because we're Black to begin with, but now I feel like, well, we're 2 ply behind because White's already got in bishop d2, and it's his turn. And now, having said that, how significant is it, Ernest?
It's probably not that significant, but maybe psychologically so. And Garry clearly feels like,
I got something.
I don't like what you did. You shouldn't have copied me anymore.
Right.
But now, what can I do to prove the point?
Yeah.
And the eval bar is saying, it ain't that serious. No. Sorry. It's still within bounds. And as long as Vishy, and you see how peaceful he looks, at the moment, arms folded, relaxed, while Gary's going through all kinds of paroxysms at the moment. Right. Vishy's just like, you know what? I'm chill. I don't think it's that bad. The structure is perfect. You're not really saying much that's going to bother me. So what?
But now I'm living in your world where let's just finish our development.
Right.
Let's go bishop c2. Let's look for castles. Let's get both of our knights out. And again, I'm just a full step ahead of you in this foot race.
Yeah, exactly. I agree wholeheartedly. Now, again, we often get to these positions, these middle game positions, and we say the breaks. Where are the breaks? Okay, I have extra development, so I need to open up the position.
Good luck.
Where's my breaks?
Good luck. You may have a lead in development, but you don't have easy breaks.
No.
It's a fantastic point.
Yeah.
Good luck finding a way to aggress the Black King. Bishop c7 followed by queenside castles will happen very soon. And then the knights will come out. And the key question, I think the whole question of this position actually comes down to what damage can the 2 knights, the one sitting on f1 and one sitting on g1, how quickly can they cause some kind of ruckus?
Exactly.
Because if these knights don't do any damage soon, Black's just going to develop the pieces.
Absolutely.
And Black's going to be perfectly fine. If you're going to take a lot of time getting the structure going, and you're making some moves right now, Yaz, to show what might be possible, it's not going to be something that painful. Why are we giving away pawns?
I just wanted to show once again my aggressive propensity to go after, after kings. I'm the natural king hunter.
You are living in some
in
kind
case
of...
anybody was wondering what Yasser was capable of, we just had to get that out.
Well, I mean, you know,
quick.
you bring the queen on h1 that's doing nothing to a7. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're a god. That's impressive stuff.
Okay. Well, I'll give you $1,000 if you see that play.
Well, thank you very much.
No, I'll give him $5,000. That's a fantasy.
Wait a minute. Bidding isn't over. The producers are still behind you guys.
Raising the paddles. But how about this? I mean, again, time is always a factor, and we have a 5-minute differential right now between these two players. So, you know, right now, copycat chess, by all accounts, is seeming to work here for Vishy, just from the perspective of giving himself time.
Okay.
What's G3?
Thank you. I was going to ask second. What is G? Well, obviously we're opening up the queen, but beyond that, okay, all I can see is a possibility that Garry wants something of this nature. Don't ask me or why he would want to be able to recapture on F5 with his queen. I don't know what G3 is. You tell me.
I'm struggling.
He's just trying to build a pyramid, as far as I'm concerned. G4 is coming. Yeah.
Step by step, then, right? No, G2, G3. Nope. I don't like it. I think it's not. I think it's a useful move, but I don't see it as being a critical key move. I like what you were saying, James. Bishop C2, castle quickly. Put your rook on E1. That's the open file. Bring your rook to the open file. I love it.
You're also taking a square away from your knight. It's
right?
not a move that is going to scare Vishy in any way, shape, or form.
No.
That's clear. The thing that we have to pay attention to now, of course, are the clock times. Now, Vishy can just start playing some moves. He can recognize, I'm not in any real danger here.
No.
There's no way G3 landed on the board and you fell off your chair.
No.
You should be playing a quick move in response. And there he is. And he's played G6.
The younger brother
Make it make sense.
I want to go back to copying you again.
Make it make sense.
Okay. And look at Garry, like, reflect back, like, what?
I love it.
Again, I didn't see that coming.
Maybe that was the whole idea of G3, just to see if he would keep, hey, there's no world where he would copy this move, right?
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, they're surprising us, but again, there's no dynamic tension in this position whatsoever. Sooner or later, some pieces will come off the back row, and strategically, it is going to be up to Garry to check his time eval bar. Right now, he is down more than 4 minutes.
Yep.
I mean,
that's the most significant thing that came out of this opening is the slow play and the lack of a clear plan by Garry. He used a lot of time, and I still don't have a good impression what he's doing with this piece.
Which is interesting because it doesn't feel like we've hit any critical moments in this game, right? And
Not
the
at
critical
all.
moments is where you want to see the 2 to 5 minute things.
Right.
You only got a couple of those in the bank at this point here, Maurice.
The most exciting thing that happened in this game is rook takes E8 check. that's
Wow.
right?
I nearly fell off my seat.
It was like an earthquake.
Yeah, right.
But
Here we go.
Wow.
A move we can all get behind.
Yes.
You know, no high marks for Vishy's move coming up next.
Bishop C7. You want to bet? Let's make a bet. Is Bishop C7 going to happen?
High probability. High probability. By the way, 5 minutes on the time eval bar in favor of Vishy. I'd play Bishop C7, castles, lickety split. Let's get that on the board. Because again, Garry has been slow playing it, and I would get the feeling my opponent's not comfortable. He hasn't come up with a plan. Bishop C7, let's go.
Unless he felt like Bishop C2 was in some way an error, putting the bishop specifically there, why haven't you played Bishop C7 already?
As in missed opportunity or something?
Or something.
I don't know. I don't see why
It's got to
it would
be
a
Bishop
miss.
C7. And
Breaking the symmetry.
Breaking a more active square, preventing any b3 move, as you mentioned, Yaz, the bishop on that diagonal.
It was funny because I wanted to play bishop a4 way back in the day and to provoke b3. Now you would imagine how fun it would have been to have provoked b3. Anyway, castle's long. Let's go.
Okay.
We just want to point out that b3 would probably not be a good idea because of this check.
Ouch.
And so here we go. Gary is castling, and he has castled.
And he did it with one hand.
Did it with one hand.
Yeah, you picked up on that too, James. And Vishy instantly castled. Okay.
All righty.
So still the symmetry is king. And the eve, I mean, it's balanced. It's completely balanced at this moment.
There is very little here separating the two players.
Exactly.
Just frankly,
Yeah.
the most important thing we want to look at, let's just really take a look at the pawn structure. In this position, you can see the symmetry. I mean, black's pawns look exactly like white's. There's 4 against 4 on this side.
Yep.
When we have this kind of symmetrical pawn structure, it means no one has an edge in this way. No one has anything easy to do to break that symmetry. This is just exactly twins of each other. The knights will come out, and they'll look like twins of each other in a moment. So this is really not much here. We would say they're playing a GM draw. If it was me and Yasser sitting down, it's because we wanted to get this game over with and go have some dinner.
Right.
Like, this is what you would say about a game like this one at the moment. It's just not much going on.
Nope.
This type of board position for me is the most difficult to evaluate and find a way forward. I know not every piece is necessarily developed yet, but we're kind of in that state of the game where a number of moves have been made, and I've got to learn I've got to figure out a way to plot a path forward. How are you approaching it? Are you always focused on launching attacks on the king? Are you looking at specific pieces? Are you looking at your own piece setup, or are you more focused on your opponent's piece setup and how to dismantle it? Where do I, in a middle game, as a lower-rated player, build an attack plan?
Well, the correct answer, of course, is yes to all of the above. Okay. Yes, I am looking to improve each and every one of my pieces. The last move by Garry, by the way, the rook on d1, e1, not the most phenomenal earthquake-like move, but it improves the rook, brings it to the open file. And I always compare my pieces to one another. Maurice, yeah, I like that bishop that you got there. No, let me trade that off. Maurice, I hate that knight. Let me trade that. You keep that one. I'm not going after that. So, yeah, I'm looking to improve my pieces. I'm looking to take away your good guys, leave your guys alone. Also, I feel like whenever my opponent's retreating, like keep retreating. Let them retreat. Let them retreat. In this position, this is not enough to sink your teeth into. And Vishy's doing the correct thing, which is, look, this is your good rook. Hey, guess what? I'll trade it off.
Right.
And we've seen this chopping block along the e-file.
If I may, another thing that's of critical importance, of course, improve your pieces and restrain your opponent's pieces. That's just general chess 101.
Right.
But also identify your opponent's weakness or weaknesses and see if you can come up with a plan to attack those weaknesses and cause your opponent some discomfort. That will cause your opponent to put pieces on squares they don't necessarily want to.
Right.
And any kind of miscoordination, discoordination in the enemy camp, you can then exploit on the next move. You cannot plot the entire thing all the way
As
down.
much as you'd like.
We say in chess, it's important, yes, to look ahead, but it's also important to be situationally aware. Right in this moment, what's the best thing for me to do? That's really what you need. And the best thing to do at this moment, from my eyes, get those darn knights off the back rank at some point, and then eyeball weaknesses. You see Yasser noted the f7 weakness. We can smell those kind of weaknesses at a long range. Yeah. That bishop move just weakened the f7 square. It's not a big one, but where else are you going to find a weakness in this position? There might be a little tiny bit of dark square weakness, if I will, on this diagonal right here. Kind of, sort of. It's nothing that a strong player would be scared and terrified of. This bishop could have some influence in some way, maybe on this square, but it's just too tiny. It's just small margin we're talking about. But also, remember the Alpha Zero-esque H4 type ideas as well could come into play. although black will probably challenge with h5, but then the knight can get to g5 pretty rapidly.
Exactly. Again, Garry has not been playing swiftly, quite the contrary. It took him a number of minutes to play what for us is a very natural move, just get the pieces out. And with the move rook e1, he is eyeballing the possibility of knight e5. Again, not the only move, but for me, a high-quality move would be the move rook e8. He did play
that
f7,
right here.
f6. A situation that I spoke about earlier, in these exchange French, the fight for the e5 and the e4 squares are huge. And so that earlier opportunity of playing f7, f6, and bishop g6 that I referenced makes sense. Now we finally, Garry picking up the pace. It's taking him a while.
He's picking up the pace. I appreciate that we've developed the knights, and of course we're kind of preempting the knight jump over there to e5. But this to me now feels like I've kind of caged in my own knights on the black side of the board. There's less opportunity of spaces for me to develop these knights too.
I would agree.
For white or for black?
For black, sorry.
For black, I would agree with that. The thing, though, is knight e6 is pretty easy. Knight e7 is a clear square for you to go to. So that doesn't seem like that necessarily that big a problem. By the way, I want to point out that in this moment, we have a normal-ish looking position.
Yeah, the players have gotten, like this is chess. This looks right out of the exchange French.
The only thing we're wondering is, why did this queen move to the h1 square, and why did this queen move to the h8 square?
Right.
That's where you'd be wondering, like, how did this happen? By the way, that last move...
Very strange.
Now we are in the area of miscoordination of pieces. The bishop on e6 feels like it's on a bad square. On the open file, the knight on f8 now can't move without some worry, some small worry that rook will have some kind of play. Knight c4 maybe, if you don't think correctly. So, for example, I'm going to make a move for white.
Play queen f1.
You want to play queen f1?
Oh, desperately. The reason I want to play queen f1, we talked about pawn breaks before. At last, not that I'm eager, c3, c4. And in case, you now go ahead, play your knight d7.
All right, now knight d7. Garry has, in fact, played the move queen to f1. So you did predict that.
Now knight c4 is what
now
we were showing.
This is the idea I was saying. Suddenly this knight move shows up, and you're hitting this bishop, and you're hitting this bishop at the same time. You're forced, actually, to capture this knight. There's no other move because the two bishops are happening. So now you get the advantage of the two bishops. You get another tempo on the bishop on the d6 square, and a little button is hanging with queen takes c4 to follow.
Now this has gone wrong.
Something's gone wrong. Here you have to play knight b6, in fact, to defend the position.
And let me tell you right now, right here, I see a pawn grab. Do you see it? Do you see it, Maurice? The pawn grab?
From here?
The queen on h8 is undefended. So you go queen h3, making
the king move.
Making the king move.
And the guy spots.
Now the bishop's all the way
distance,
across.
Boy.
Wow.
Amazing.
Sweet nectar.
Amazing. Yes, don't count on Yasser to find the way forward.
That to me, you were talking about boxing earlier. That to me felt like a boxer. He threw the feint to the left-hand side of the board just to get you to look that way for 1 second, and then he goes right to snap up a pawn, just like that.
We call it the old 1-2.
You see, in Yasser's puzzle rush, there's puzzle rush, right? In all of the puzzles in Yasser's puzzle rush, it's how do you win a pawn?
How do you win a pawn?
Mates? Oh, those are boring. It's garbage out here. Wins of queens? Please. How do you win that pawn? And that's a puzzle rush.
That's a building block. It's a building block to victory right there. You grab enough pawns, it's equivalent to a queen as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Trying to bring you all into higher consciousness. Queen g7, very, very natural move. I still am puzzled about the move bishop e6. I just didn't see why. It steps in the pathway of the knight. Queen g7 a moment ago, knight e7, knight e6 made sense. Why did I need to put the bishop on e6? Now, Garry, the challenge is he's behind on the clock. Should he make the positional risk? Should he be playing the move c3, c4, potentially getting stuck with a very awkward isolated pawn? But we're kind of hitting we're making use of the open file. I don't know, Maurice. For Garry, I'm taking a big strategic risk with
Yes,
C4.
I don't think he's going to do that. But problematically, as you mentioned, that clock,
7 minutes.
7:17, counting down, 13:24. You don't have a real edge,
No.
like something big. More importantly, you don't have a clear path forward.
That's my problem.
What should you do exactly? You know what Vishy's doing, as far as I'm concerned, the way he's left his knights on the back rank? He's playing sort of a hedgehog type spirit.
Yeah.
Right? Where you just bottle up, say, okay, I got no weaknesses.
Right.
You've got no entry points. How do you come get me?
Exactly.
Figure out your words. And look at Garry shaking his head now. He's the one with the lead in development.
Yeah.
He's the one who may have some sort of chances. His knights are not stuck on the back rank at the
Right.
moment. But he's not looking happy because he can't figure out a way to hit.
Right.
Move forward. What do you do to put pressure on this position?
Feels like he should be making progress, but he's just chasing his opponent around the ring right now, and he's bleeding time while it happens.
The clock time is getting more than a little serious. If you're not playing C4, and I kind of feel you're not playing C4, I think what you are playing for is control of the F4 square. Why? I want to play H4, followed by the move knight G2. And what I want to do with this knight is bring it to a much better square, the F4 square, so I can put pressure on the knight. Now, Garry played the move knight G2 right away. Why did I preface it with the move H4? I wanted to kind of prevent the move bishop H3. I saw the move knight G2, then I saw the move bishop H3. And if my pawn were on H4, I would play queen H1 right here. I'd break the pin, kick the knight away, kick the bishop away, I beg your pardon, and then bring my knight to F4. Knight G2, Maurice, I feel like Garry's struggling a little bit here.
15 moves in to get to this position.
Right.
Vishy down to 12:30, so he's used half his time, but Garry down to 6:19. And there's going to come a point where Vishy is going to play a move that Garry will have to pause a bit longer, legitimately. Right. So far, he's played no move that Garry needed to think very, very deeply.
Right.
There's going to become a move where he's going to go, oh, wait, what's this? Mm-hmm. And when it does land on the board, and did it?
He won't have the time. No,
and he won't have a lot of time to really cogitate, meditate, and calculate. He will have to move. Right. And your move, is this your suggestion?
Yes.
Move G5?
Yes.
G5
yeah, not on the board.
May be one of those types of moves, as it has not been played as yet, but it's going to be. You see how Vishy just sat up in his chair? Yeah. It doesn't look like a big deal. You think you're just kind of relaxing, just getting a bit more comfortable. No. Mm-hmm. Chess players, what's going on in their heads also gets reflected in the body. And things like that, if you see any kind of motion that's different from just sitting there, suggests that something's going on in his head right now.
Right.
What do I do different? How do I complicate the situation so that Garry will have to stop and think for even longer, burning his clock?
He's been somewhat floating through this game up to this point, but as you mentioned, now giving it a good think. Creeping down to about 11 minutes. You want to keep that time advantage right before you ask the question of your opponent that is going to force them into that long think, but perhaps recognizing this could be the critical moment where he poses that question to Garry Kasparov.
Now I finally understand why Garry played the move knight G2 first and not H4. Finally, what I understand is that Garry had prepared, in case of bishop H3, a natural move to pin the knight. The knight on F3 actually has no future. It's not on a good square. But after knight G1, this knight will come to F4. This knight will reroute itself. So actually the move bishop H3 is a poor decision. Ill-advised. Poor decision for Vishy, and he played...
Instead, we'll have a knight developing for the first time here on the black side of the board. Okay. It will go to the rim. Obviously, that's not its final destination.
But, okay, Bishop, I like this move because, again, I didn't see a future for this knight. Now you've vacated a square. Potentially, I've got the maneuver. Mm-hmm. And Vishy, anticipating bishop F4, that was very clever of Vishy, is ready to respond with any trades, brings that knight back into the game.
There's nothing here.
Nothing.
For white.
Nope.
That last maneuver, the knight has
good.
made a couple of moves. We saw it on the G8 square. We wondered where it was going to go. And also the F8 knight, it's going to take some time because it's defending. This knight is defending this bishop at the moment that is under some kind of aggression from the rook on E1. So now I see you making a move there, Yasser, the suggestion of rook to E3. But the bottom line is that any move you make, this position is close to equality. You're going to have to figure out how to complicate life for black.
Right.
But there we see a trade.
Well, on black's terms.
On black's terms, and now the knight to F4 challenging that piece. So bishop takes, knight takes, and then knight to F4 has been played. That bishop most likely will drop back. It has two options, which directions to go in. D7 looks like a reasonable one. It could also, actually, this bishop for the first time has like a zillion choices it could make. You could pin, you could attack the knight. You could maybe play bishop F5. You're saying queen D7 is possible as well. There are a number of opportunities for Vichy at the moment. And very importantly, double the time on the clock, approximately 5:42 to 10:05.
I like the move rook E8, unless I'm getting a little bit pinned gummied up by the move queen H3. I don't think so. I don't think that is something I have to fear. I've got king D7. I've got queen D7 as ways. But what did Vichy do? Sorry, I'm just going to refresh my board.
He played bishop G4 and now knight.
Instantly.
Okay.
Instantly.
And Garry played knight D2.
Wow.
The knight back.
Okay. He was ready for that move, bishop to G4. Again, I didn't think that the knight had a future or any kind of a promising, any prospects, I should say. Knight E5 and knight G5 are both verboten. So knight D2, I think that was a kind of a useful bump. Thank you. I was going to move my knight anyway. I don't think that particularly helped Vichy's cause.
Well, the thing about this position, though, is we're nowhere.
It's even, Steven.
It's completely even.
Yeah.
And as much as this has been building, the tension is building. The tension, build, slow play. And the key, I hate to just keep harping on this, the key is going to be the clock.
Right. Yeah.
And we don't see it yet, but it's going to be a factor if the pieces don't get traded off. And this, so far, we've sort of had our library voices at the moment. It's okay. But in about 4 minutes,
we'll be screaming.
we're going to have our basketball voices on.
It's a slow build to the day.
Right?
Absolutely.
Right. Love this move, queen F7, by the way. This is a very chill move.
Help me understand this move.
Okay. So the idea is improve your pieces. Full stop. What is the queen doing on G7? Do you have a better square for the queen? Queen on G7 is covering H6, not doing anything. Queen on F7 covers the E8 square. Remember we were talking about how important it was at the open file. Whose rook's on the open file? Well, if we trade, we can recapture with the queen. So that's one good thing.
Right.
Next good thing is white has been building to control the E6 square. And the move queen F7, challenge. I'm not going to allow you to just hang there. The knight on F8, it needs life. It's done nothing for us. It hasn't earned a single oat.
Right.
So
we can only unlock it. Yeah.
With the move knight. So I like this nice little building move. I like it very much, queen F7. And it's back to ball in your court, Garry. What are you going to do?
That's maybe the most important thing, right? Is how quickly and smoothly that each of these moves are coming out. So queen repositions here to F7. We're just about to go below 4 minutes on the clock. 5 minutes difference between these two players. And that's probably the more important element, is just how much time Anand has to work with versus Garry at this point.
Not probably,
4 minutes.
Definitely. It's look where he is. Do you know when your clock hits 3-something, what starts happening to your heart rate? We don't have a heart monitor on Garry right now, but Garry better wake up and realize, I got to move. I got to get in blitz mode. He is way too calm. Well, maybe he's starting to realize that he's thinking, what are you thinking about, bro?
Exactly.
Your clock is precarious right now.
I'm seeing a draw, guys. I'm seeing a force a forced sequence of moves which essentially hoovers all the pieces off the board, just threatening to trade everything.
A little bit of liquidation.
And I'm expecting this, especially because of the clock times.
Do you think Gary is going, Vishy's going to acquiesce?
My
exact question as well.
Why not just keep playing moves? You don't have a bad position.
No, of course not. I just see that as the natural. All things being equal, those are the best moves. You go play. This bishop on f3 bothers me. Get out of the way. f3. This bishop, if I were black, bothers me. Let's trade it off.
Right.
We trade it. I've got the open file. No, but you don't.
So is there any point within that sequence, again, as Gary finally makes a move with only 240 to his name,
f3.
He doesn't go that way.
No, that's a surprise.
Could we please look at the clock times? I mean, is that
Nine
bothering anybody? I can't sit here. I can't even pay attention to anything else.
Yeah, the whole desk is shaking over here right now.
What are you doing?
It's like the 24-second clock. He's got 3 seconds to put up a shot.
I will say Gary did play pretty phenomenally down the stretch with low time yesterday.
In fact, he said it himself in his interview.
Yeah.
He actually outplayed Vishy when he had no time.
With no time.
That was surprising for everybody. Knight d3. Okay, reasonable move. The knight on d3 kind of mirrors the knight on d6. You're looking for that outpost on c5 to take advantage. Again, for me, it's this knight on f8 as well as this rook on d8. I'm looking to play the move rook e8. I'm looking to play the move knight e6. And I would do it, if I was Vishy, quickly. One of those two.
I think Vishy is still looking for some kind of interesting move.
How do we keep it?
How do you make him
the game
think? But he's finally decided just to play a standard rook centralizing move, opposing white's rook, and now knight to c5.
Knight to c5 came quickly.
I think Gary's aware now. Tick tock, time ticking down.
And again, look, to my way of thinking, this knight on c5 bothers me. I want to play knight d7 and challenge it.
Yeah, should induce an e6.
Yeah, well, to challenge it. Challenge the knight on c5.
Yeah.
I don't want to play the move b6. Not that I'm afraid of check. I mean, the rook is hanging. Keep that in mind. I'm not afraid of this position, but why allow it? Why let that queen leap into the game? So if I'm in Vishy's shoes, I'm finding rook takes e1, check, as well as knight d7 as the most compelling.
Although
I
know I'm going to say something
profound.
He's not doing it. Although you said the word provocative.
Yeah.
And provocative might not be a bad idea. It's one of those moves. It may be one of those moves you have to play that is provocative, that makes Gary go, what? Are you crazy? If it's still correct.
Right.
If it's still correct. We don't want to play moves that are compromising our position. But that b6 move could have been one of those moves that Gary looks and goes, this is not possible. And by the time he's cleared the cobwebs, he's down to 1 minute and 3 seconds on his clock as he tries to refute your move. Well, Vishy has decided to play very conservatively, correctly, as you mentioned, challenge that knight. Gary quickly responded with knight to b3.
The cavalry. It's on the move right now. He's bringing everything over to the left-hand side of the board. Are we looking now at jumping all the way up to a5, threatening that very pawn, maybe trying to get it to come out into the field?
Already protected. The knight on d6 already protects b7. So even if
here,
I give you a free hand to play the move knight a5, I've got it defended. So for me, if I'm Vishy's shoes, I'm saying, dude, you just misplaced your knight. What are you doing? And I am trading off the potential attackers. Now, normally speaking, you don't like to give up the open file. So I was expecting something like munch. And yeah, we're just.
And now we're fizzling.
That's
compared to yesterday's games that were just full of brimstone and fire and sharp play, lava bombs going on. This game does not have that intensity. The players are being a bit more cagey. And as a result, believe it or not, all the way, if we go way back.
Almost to the start.
To this move after d5.
Move?
Right here. And you made note of it, Yaz, when it happened. When Gary played this move, e takes d5, and allowed this pawn structure, the pawn structure hasn't changed at all since
no.
then. Pawn structures can be very sticky. This is one of them. And so as we jump now to the current position,
Yeah, live
we see
position.
that a trade has occurred. The pawn structure is pretty much the same. Nothing serious going on. A queen under attack, the second most interesting thing that's happened in this game. And the queen moved away. We saw the eval bar give queen f7 a blunder.
No, yeah, it
queen
misread.
E7.
It thought it went to E7 first.
question mark.
That's definitely not a bad move here.
Right. No, bishop f5 by Vichy. Again, I'm seeing the piece as just getting hosed off the board like a vacuum. Everything's going, and you said it very well from the very start. Pawn structure hasn't changed a bit.
No pawn breaks, nothing aggressive, a couple of cagey pawn moves, nothing to fundamentally alter the dynamic structure in any way. Nobody's paid attention to that. Vichy's got to walk out of this game thinking, oh, I just neutralized your white. You got 0 coming out of that. Was that Garry's strategy coming into the morning round?
Protecting his lead in the match.
Well, and you brought us all the way back to move 2 there to kind of explain where it all happened. But I'll bring us all the way back to move 1 for Vichy, right? And how much that seemed to be unexpected on the side of Garry. E6, and man, we had a 5+ minute think. And once again, we're down below 2 minutes, 1 minute and 45 on the clock here for Garry Kasparov. So he's not out of the woods just yet, while still maybe has some options to get more pieces off the board and liquidate to a draw.
I see it as inevitable at this point. I would trade, if I was Garry, I would trade on f5, knight takes f5. Play a move like king to d2, anticipate more, hacking taking place on the e-file.
How much hustle potential is in this position, though?
There's no cheapo potential, no hustling.
None at all. I mean, after all, you're down to 1:13 on the clock.
I know that.
Are you really giving this guy a 6 to 1?
No.
You think that if you're in this position, 6 to 1 doesn't matter. You could draw this in your sleep.
No. And especially against a player of Vichy's class, I would hate to be down that much on the clock.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, why should Vichy just roll over and say, I'm just
okay, let's make a draw.
Donate the draw. No. Let's play a few moves. Let's see what happens.
I get ambitious, yeah.
Yeah, not do anything crazy, but let's keep the game going. You're the one who's down on the clock, not me.
But it does mean that Vichy's the one who has to keep the game going, right? Garry can just keep making moves that offer the trades, offer the equality, things like that. At some point, Vichy has to say no to that.
Well, but the strange part, James, to your point, was Garry could have traded off the bishops, could have traded off the rooks, could have brought his queen to a situation where they get faced off and trade. He didn't do that. It's like he's keeping the game alive.
Correct.
With no time on the clock.
You know
What's
what?
wrong with you?
It's like the scorpion and the frog.
Yeah, right?
Like, look, I'm sorry, take me across the water.
Right.
But no, you're a scorpion. You're going to sting me. No, why would I do that?
We'll both die.
We'll both die. No, take me across, and then when you start crossing, I stung you. Guess what? I can't change my nature.
My nature.
Gary's not the kind of player who wants to trade down. It's just, he's not, I'm going to panic. No, I'm Garry Kasparov. I'm the beast of Baku. Let's keep it busy a little bit. And I also think, remember Gary's parting words yesterday? He said to Anastasia, when we got in time pressure, I outplayed him.
Yes.
Maybe Garry thinks, let's drag him into those time pressure waters, and maybe I will be able to do it yet again. But this is a little bit taking a chance with the time disparity, although it's not as bad as it was.
I was going to say, it's lessening, right? Every time we check back in with the clocks, that differential is starting to shrink. But once again, we have another piece coming off the board. The rooks have just left the battlefield, so we're left with a couple minor pieces in play for each player and the queens.
On the board.
G5?
Yeah, just kind of giving the bishop, in case Garry wanted to play the move G4, it gives the bishop a little opportunity. It always had bishop D7.
Right.
Played.
Instantly, by the way.
G4 on the board.
Garry has to pick up his pace. I like bishop to G6, by the way. It's not like I'm giving up control of the E6 square. What are you going to do? Go queen E6? Knight E6? Nothing. And again, Queen E8 maybe on a good day if I could ever get a battery. You know what I mean? You know, I could. I'm always king hunting. Yeah, I'm always hunting.
King hunting in this position. You should stop. Yes, sir. But look,
3:30 now for Vishy.
Tick tock. You got to make a move.
Tick tock.
What is Vishy thinking now? And this is
well, he played G5 to play Bishop G6. Why is he thinking about this one?
And by the way, this is maybe the third exciting moment in the game. We had Rook takes E8 at one moment. Then we had this nice C5 threat to the queen. And now G4 is the moment where something's under attack. At least we can get a little excited.
We were talking about
G6?
Possible pawn breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the moment?
It is indeed the moment. F4 has been played.
Wow.
And now we have fire on the chessboard.
No.
Here we go.
F4.
Is this just giving up a pawn entirely?
No,
Or no?
because
What
his
am I not seeing?
intention is to recapture. In case of takes, Garry wants to play the move Queen F2, and it's not possible to defend the pawn. Queen takes F4 next. But I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, Garry, what are you up to? Are you really, really serious? You've given up the E4 square, my friend. I start to think about the move B6, and I genuinely start to think, you know what? I'm going to have command over this square E4 for the rest of the game. What are you doing?
We're going back to that interview from yesterday. I feel like I'm outplaying down the stretch. I feel like I'm outplaying when it comes to time trouble. There's 2 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock. Only 1 minute separates both of these players at this point. And it's now that Garry decides to strike.
Yes. Yes. It's now.
Bad timing.
It's
bad timing.
Here
Bad timing.
You're not sold. You're not sold.
No, I'm thinking
Vishy agrees with you.
I prefer black's position after the move B7, B6, because I think, in my mind, you have given up. Again, you heard me from the very start. These squares E4, E5, it comes down to that battle. And if I win control over E4, I feel like I'm the player with the advantage. By the way, what are we going to do? The knight has got to come.
The knight is under attack. Knight B3 is not the most attractive move in the world.
That move I don't like. I don't like F5. For example, takes, tick, 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 tick. That would cost Garry a pawn.
It would cost him a pawn, but right now he's costing himself dearly on the clock. 40 seconds and counting. He will go for it of all things.
The very move I said, careful, don't play.
Much to Yasser's chagrin.
What
we are here.
I think Garry is cruising for a bruising.
I'll tell you right now. He's about to get punched, and he is going down a pawn. The engine hates that last move.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Well, let's just see what Garry is thinking about. If I take, you got to take the bishop, right? If I take, you got to take the pawn. If I put my knight on this magnificent square, give me the pawn. I'm assuming Queen E3. Give me the pawn. I'm assuming B4.
No, this is...
Give me the pawn.
This is not what you want. This is
I'm
definitely not what you want. Vishy has
There we go.
taken on F5, which is actually the top move here.
Even the best move. Okay.
Best move in the position. And next stop, give me that. And now, what you said, Yaz,
bring that centralized
knight is going to become a horse, indeed, a stallion on the E4 square. Garry's in big trouble.
Possibly even the E5 square. Interesting, isn't it? Like we were talking at the very start. Yesterday, what's the difference between these two gladiators? And I said, for me, the standout is that Vishy has this propensity to prefer knights to bishops. Mm-hmm. He is unique amongst his grandmaster colleagues in his desire to play the knight. Guess what we got? Queen and knight versus queen and bishop. Which player will prove
You've got
his
to prove
word?
it now. You've got to prove it now. And we're rapidly approaching panic time for both players.
Both
and for
players.
the first time in this game, it's actually Viswanathan who has less time on his clock. He does get the 10-second increment back up to
Where did it all go?
111.
Where did it go?
He's winning a pawn. That's where it went.
By the way, knight e4. If I'm in Vishy's shoes, I am chomping at the bit to bring my queen to the e5 square. Knight e4. Love this move.
Yeah.
What is Garry doing?
He's throwing away the game is what he's doing. He's down to now 37 seconds. He's down is the count right? He's about to be down.
He'll be down a pawn.
He will be down a pawn shortly.
We have
and
a move.
C4.
What?
Didn't see that.
On the board, mixing it up.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it, Maurice.
He is playing Russian roulette with this position.
Yeah, but
C4 is a wild move.
But all the chambers are loaded. How about going pawn hunting? Queen F4 check, Queen C7 to F4. By the way, give me that pawn too while you're at it. And give me this pawn too.
Yeah, I just want to grab that pawn with my knight right now.
But guess
That's
what?
a possibility.
Vishy is now down on the clock.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. This is the moment Garry was talking about in his interview. I outplay him in the time pressure. And how is it possible that Vishy's at 20 seconds now?
You've got to make a move.
I don't think Vishy sees Queen C7. I think he's calculating knight takes C5.
You've got to pick up a piece.
Vishy.
Make a move.
10, single digits. We're down to 5 seconds now for Viswanathan. 4 seconds on the clock.
3,
Is he even
2,
aware of the fact that he needs to make a move? He's about to flag.
He
I'm seeing the time.
Oh, my God. Vishy just completely lost awareness of the clock.
What just happened?
Garry Kasparov comes away with the victory. They're discussing it now.
No, I thought I had time.
You heard it right there. I thought I had time.
He just completely lost focus.
Oh, my goodness. We're going to take a look at these final moments again to show you the flag. It just wasn't moving with the urgency that he needed down the stretch. He got lulled into a false sense of security with the time bank that he had built up, and you can see it right here. He's considering a couple of moves, isn't going to reach for it. Clock hits 0, and that's it. Garry Kasparov gets away with one.
And 2 big points, $2,000.
$2,000, 2 massive points, like you said, into his win column, and he's got a very solid advantage in the tournament overall. But now here's where I'm concerned for kind of the mentality of a player like Viswanathan coming off of yesterday. We saw him looking maybe a little bit dejected after that 4th game where he had an opportunity to take advantage and equalize things. That's not the way you want to kick off day number 2.
Well, especially the final position, because we just thought Vishy had a big advantage. I mean, on the position. If he plays the move Queen C7, which is screamer, you always look for checks, right? So Queen C7 to Queen F4 check, you always look to munch pawns. And if Garry had captured, well, that pawn's dead, or that pawn's dead. Take your pick.
What was he afraid of?
I have no idea.
No,
he just forgot about the clock.
Absolute lack of clock awareness in a critical moment.
Wow.
He had no idea how much time he had on the clock. This is an unmitigated disaster, a catastrophe of like unimaginable proportions that such a star player could lose a game in the way he just did. I'm in shock, and I'm sure his fans all around the world are in shock as well.
Without a doubt, a shocking result here. Game 1 of the day on day 2. We're going to get a look at these updated score lines because it is more money in the pocket of Garry Kasparov. You can already see bonus money up to $3,000 with that win. But perhaps more importantly, it's those 2 points that he has secured himself because every game is more valuable today than it was yesterday. The same will happen again tomorrow as we look towards day number 3. Still 3 games to go, though. Still plenty of room to make it back up if he can recoup and not let this eat at him.
Funny you should put it.